a woman. She is a sun ray to flowers that bloom. Find her in God's hands. No longer silent. In God's hands. No longer silent.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm pleased to welcome you to season 2 of No Longer Silent podcast. Yep, you heard me right. Season 2. I hope that you are as excited as I am because this simply means that we've made it amidst the obstacles and the tears we've shed in season 1. We've made it to season 2 together and stronger than ever. To all our new and returning listeners from all around the world, thank you so much for joining me. As per usual, I am your host, Navita Milton Riley. And as I said before, I am so excited that we are in season 2 of No Longer Silent. My guest today is such a powerhouse. She wears many hats in our home assembly in Georgia. She is literally our rock, and I'm sure all the Georgia people listening out there could agree with me that she is literally our rock. Her name is Sister Donna Baxter, and she's joining us as our first guest in season 2 of the No Longer Silent podcast to share her story, to share her testimony. Sister Baxter, welcome.
Thank you.
It is so wonderful to have you. But before we get into what you're sharing, I would like for you to just tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into the church. Maybe just take a minute to tell us that little part of your story before we get into the bigger piece.
I think I need more than a minute, but okay, most know me as Sister Donna Baxter, of course. I joined the church here back in 2007 when we moved to Georgia. And but I am from my home church that I'm from is the Reformed Church in Queens, New York. And I was baptized in that church in the year 2000 and had been a member till I left and came here. And I didn't know anything about Seventh-day Church of God. Actually, I was a Sunday goer. And in going to church on Sunday, I was going to an Episcopalian church at the time. They had engrafted me to teach Sunday school, and I had no clue, nothing about the Bible other than then the Lord's Prayer and, all of that. But I took the challenge because I wanted to learn. I figured as I'm teaching the kids, I'd learn something myself. And it was a challenge. I had a kid in that class that really challenged me. But after a while, there was a hunger for something more. I didn't know what it was, but there was a hunger for something more. And I happened to mention to a friend of mine that I was looking for a new church. I had looked for checked out about 3 other churches, and for some reason, something went wrong. Nothing positive came out of it. And when I mentioned that to a friend of mine, she told me about a Saturday church. And I was like, Saturday, Saturdays are a day. We work overtime. I'm at work, I ain't got time to go to church on Saturday. And with that, I decided to visit one Saturday right before I was working the 3 to 11 shift at that time. So we went early in the morning, and I went in, and I was caught off guard. It was powerful. It was beautiful. Just the love that I felt when I went in, and I kept going back till eventually I was baptized in the church. Like I said, we moved to Georgia, not having a church to come to Georgia. And be honest with you, it wasn't like we were moving because we needed a church down here. We were moving because of housing. So after moving here, actually, one of our sisters that used to go to Reformed Church had already been living here. She has passed, Sister Barbara Huey. She was going to the church over in Dallas. And when we found out that she was here, and she only lived about 15 minutes from where we bought a house. So it was God's design. And we linked up with her and started going to church. And I remember even driving to church, I kept asking, I felt like one of those little kids. When are we there yet? Are we there yet? When are we going to get there? Because it was about an hour and a half drive. And I called my husband, who wasn't here at the time, and I said, I am not going there every week. This is crazy. This is too far. But other than being out for being sick or something like that, we drove every week. And so that's how I became a part of Mount Zion, and have been blessed, absolutely blessed, since being here.
Okay, and we are indeed happy to have you. As I said before, you are our rock in Georgia. We can always depend on you for whatever it is that we want. So we're gonna go ahead and talk about what you want to share with us today. And I'm gonna let you introduce the story that you would want to share with us today.
Okay. Let me see. Well, I've been enjoying the podcast that has gone on since it started, and been listening into the different persons, sisters that have spoken, and I've been touched and moved and so forth. And I just realized that abuse is much more rampant than we think. It's out there, and I'm a survivor of it. And I just wanted to empower somebody that, if you've suffered any kind of abuse, that you can overcome, you can rise above it.
Yes.
And be empowered. I remember there was sexual abuse as young as, the youngest I can remember, I was about 8 years old, 7 or 8 years old. And that continued for a couple of years, different persons while I was living in Jamaica. But it shaped my mind as a young child, not being trusting, not, just scared of different things. And I realized when I became a teenager that it really affected me, in the sense that I was looking for love in all the wrong places. I was one of those young ladies that lost your virginity early. I've testified about this before. I was 15 when that happened to me. And at the end of it, when I realized that I was just a notch on somebody's belt, I mean, it really hit to the core. And I struggled a lot with self-esteem, self-confidence. I was very defensive. I was literally almost like a bully. Some people would say I'm still a bully, would still say I'm a bully right now, but it's just the mentality that I had to defend myself, that I had to, make sure that I was taken care of, and just different things that I went through growing up as a child. But that really did scar my mind, my thinking, and how I saw myself. And I always saw myself less than everybody else. Everybody else was prettier. Everybody else was better in some way, shape, or form. And so I was always, second best. So I had a lot of proving to do. And that's probably why I'm so driven when it comes to do certain things. Yeah. Because I just have that thing in me that if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it to the best of my ability, because that stems from that mentality, that abuse. Mm-hmm. When I was a little bit older, finished school, I got into a relationship because I needed to fit in. My girlfriends, remember, I was not in church. I was not church, I was out there in the world. So this was before coming to church, before giving my life to God. Mm-hmm. But God has been merciful. Oh, yeah. Just to backtrack a little bit, to talk about a little bit even about thoughts of suicide. I was about 16 years old. And I found no purpose in my life. I thought there was nothing. When I talk about low self-esteem and can't do, just going with the flow, and I wanted to end it. And I just wanted to end it. And I was listening. We were moving around a lot at that time. I was living at a friend's house and a friend of my aunt's house. Excuse me. And I remember just saying, you know what, if I wasn't here, everybody would be better off. And that stemmed again from a lot of self-esteem issues. I was made fun of at school. A lot of people don't know, but I had a very big gap in my teeth. And I, unusually wider than most persons. So I was made fun of. I was called every name. As I said, I wasn't looked at as beautiful or cute or pretty or none of that. And I defended myself in different ways. I became, defensive. And so it was at 16 years old. I remember just not wanting to live, just not wanting to be around, thinking people would be better off without me. But the Lord wouldn't have it that way. I listened to a radio station that night, and they were talking about the love of Jesus. And I know a lot of people don't believe of putting your hand out to the radio and giving your life to God. But that little process of saying the sinner's prayer at that time is what held me. I know that is much more than just saying a sinner's prayer now, but at 16 years old, I didn't know anything different. Right. And that's what held me. Anyway, moving forward, as I said, later in my years, in my 20s, I got into a relationship because I wanted to be like everybody. It's again, self-esteem issues. Mm-hmm. So I was with this gentleman, and I knew him a couple of years before we started dating. And then we started dating because my girlfriends, they had boyfriends. We were going to parties. We were doing all these different things. And I wanted to fit in. And in this relationship, he was never physically abusive, but he was emotionally abusive. Mm-hmm. Verbally, but in a passive way, abusive. Just looking back at things, I could only identify myself through him. I could only accomplish things through him. Mm-hmm. My purpose was through him. Everything was because of him. Just my mere existence was because of him. Everything I did and lived for was because of him. Excuse me. And I put every effort in this relationship because I wanted so badly a relationship. I wanted it so badly to work that I sacrificed my inner person. I sacrificed my personhood. I sacrificed myself to be with this person, to take the little silent things that he would do, the things that he would say. He would be nothing without me. You can't leave me because nobody else wants you. Wow. You're not good enough without me. Nobody's going to look at you the way I look at you. Nobody's going to love you the way that I love you. Nobody's going to care about you the way that I care about you, and on and on and on, and those things. And I realized slowly I was drifting away from my family. I was pulled away. I was always very close with my dad. And through this relationship, I was pulled away from him for a season. I was distant with my sisters, my brother. It was just me clinging onto his every move, mm-hmm. his every thought, his every talk, clinging onto that. And I'm telling you, God is merciful. As I said, he never hit me. He never raised his hand at me. But the words that he would use really was hurtful, really was demeaning. And he played me for a fool. He was cheating on me while we were together. Like I said, everything I did was for him. He needed a vehicle. I was there. He needed a place to stay. I was there. And, Even when he went away, went on trips, went on his games because he was a soccer player, went to do whatever. I was left in the background. Oh, you can stay. Don't worry. Come home late at different hours. And, I had my suspicions. I had the red flags went up, but I refused to see them. I did not want to look at them because I wanted a relationship. I wanted to be in a relationship. So I was willing to suffer. I was willing to put myself aside because I just wanted to be like everybody else in a relationship. And I thought that was love.
Mm-hmm.
God worked it out. I found out that, I was able to get proof that he was cheating. I confronted him, found the courage to confront him. And even then, I was made to feel as a fool. It's like, if anybody's cheating, it's you. And I looked at him like, what? Yeah, if anybody's out there doing anything, it's you.
Manipulative.
And I was, yes. And I was like, what do you mean me? I'm home. I don't go anywhere except with you. I remember one night I hung out with a friend of mine. She had a party. He couldn't go. I went to the party and it was so late in the morning. I was like, I'm not driving home all the way out we lived in Freeport at the time and I was in Queens. I'm like, I'm not driving all the way to Freeport tonight, this early morning. And I called, I think, and I left a message because he didn't answer. And I said, I'm going to stay over by my friend's house. I'll be home in the morning. And oh my gosh, it was just innuendos. It was just words that were like, what's the word I'm trying to find here? It was just, you did this and you're out there this and you're this. And I'm like, all I did was sleep at my friend's house. I came straight home. Mm-hmm. And, again, in that defense mode, trying to defend who I am, what I'm doing, and so forth. And, when it was revealed to me that he was cheating and I was able to get the courage to confront him and even then made to feel small to confront him. He tried to steal from me, tried to use a credit card, and I had maxed out my credit card. He didn't know. And then the credit card company called me and said, somebody just tried to use your card. And I went and I'm like, oh my gosh, somebody just tried to use my card. I don't know what to do. After not knowing it was him all this time. And he went back and told the person he was cheating on with, cheating with that. Can you believe it? She accused me of using, I never accused him. I just said somebody was using my card. But I was able to meet that person and have that conversation. And then that's how things started to come into play, that this person really did not mean me well at all. I was just a platform for him to look much bigger and, as you would have said, bossy than he was. And I was the platform for that. And I decided to break the relationship off. It was gruesome. It was argumentative. It was full of cussing. And that was one of the times I was willing to fight. I was willing to throw punches. I was willing. And I remember saying to him, I said, if you're going to hit me, you're going to have to get me good, because the punch that I'm going to throw, I'm going to damage you. I'm going to hurt you. And that was the kind of explosive relationship that I endured. Finally got rid of him. And at that point, I was at the lowest I think I've ever been in my life. And then looking for a church, all of it kind of just started coming together. And he wasn't quite out of my life because he kept trying to come back. Mm-hmm. But there was one time he came and he visited and he knocked on the door and he's like, I haven't eaten in a few days. Can you help me out? I don't know what happened to him. He disappeared, came back, said he was hungry. And me with my soft heart, let him in, fed him. Yeah. And he's like, can I please rest? And I'm like, oh my God. And I'm like, Jesus, I'm going to fall right back into this trap. And this time I had just started visiting the church. And it was like, I'm trying to get my life together. I'm trying to live for Jesus. And he's like, oh, you won't last. You're not going to last. Oh. Not even 6 months, not even 6 weeks. You're not going to last because you're going to come right back to me. And I remember going to a friend of mine and I said to her, I need help. And she called someone else, a deaconess in the church at the time. And the deaconess prayed. And after prayer was done, and I just listened. And then when everything was done, I just said, amen. And within seconds to minutes, he was calling me. He didn't feel good. I said, what's the matter? He was having chest pain. And when I tell you that God is a miracle working God, he can cause chest pain, Bill. Yes, he can cause chest pain. All right. And he was having chest pain. And literally, I could see he was really having chest pain. This was no joke. Sweating, holding his chest and everything, the classic symptoms. I called 911, got him sent to the hospital. And my friend looked at me and said, if you ever go to the hospital or call him, I personally am going to beat you. And that's how the relationship ended. And when I sat back and I reviewed my life and I looked back and I thought of the amount of fondling that happened to me as a child, the sexual abuse, the mind games, the different thoughts, wanting to commit suicide and then getting into a relationship. And, he never hit me to say that he was abusive, but he was verbally, mentally, emotionally, financially abusive. And then being at a place where one day I just said, God, I'm done. I am so done. I leave it all in your hands. I said, I'm just trying to get to know you. I don't know what life has for me. You obviously want me for some reason. I don't know what it is, but here I am. I am finished. I'm done. I surrender. I remember one prayer night, a night that we had prayer, and I don't think I've ever cried so much in my life. It was the first time I actually felt release. It was the first time that I felt a weight lifted off my shoulder. It was the first time that I felt like God understood me, that God loved me, that I really was important, that I was worthy, that, all of this didn't happen just because, but it happened for a reason. And I've always looked at it like that. Some persons may ask, do you regret what happened to you? I said, maybe if it was a different way, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. So when I say I give God thanks for the experience, some people might look at me like you're crazy, but I do give God thanks for the experience, because the different things that I've been through, I'm now able to help others.
Yes.
I'm now able to talk to others. And like when I began, I said, I'm empowered, and I try to empower others that they too can survive. Mm-hmm. It took me a few years, but I am still standing, as the song would say. I'm still here.
Yes.
And I know it's nothing of my own, but of God's mercy. I say it all the time. I tell y'all, it might be a cliche. I say it all the time. It's his grace and his mercy. And those words mean so much more to me than just uttering them. It's God reaching down to the depths of the depths, if you can think of the abyss, mm-hmm. and pulling me out.
Yeah.
It's God reaching down into places in me that I never knew existed and birthing them. It's God reaching down and reminding me that you are not created to be used and abused, but you were created for my purpose. Mm-hmm. And with that, I embarked on different things. I even through my nursing and trying to do some work with some of the young people at Georgia, I realized that I was so not even complete enough to help them. And I embarked on empowering myself even further. And I went and I did ministry, studied a little bit of ministry counseling. Mm-hmm. And it was because of talking to some of the young people. I've always been drawn to young people. It was young people that drew me into the church in the first place. My husband gives a testimony all the time that he was up there talking, and it was what he was saying, his cousins, what they were saying, the young people is what drew me into church, the love, the fire they had for Jesus. And so I always have this soft spot for young people. And I remember trying to reach out to the young women at church and just talking to a couple of them. I'm like, oh my God, I can't, what am I supposed to do? I don't even know how to answer them. I don't even know what to say. I know that I have the experience, but how do I bring it over that I'm not condescending, that I'm not putting them down, that I'm not tearing them apart, that I'm not making them feel worse than they already are. And that sent me on another journey to do some counseling, ministry counseling. And I took the course, and oh my gosh, that course revealed so much to me. I cried halfway. I mean, I would say like 89% of the course, I was in tears because it just opened my eyes to so many different things. And I realized that I'm strong, that I am beautiful. I realized that I have a power that others may not measure up to. And I'm not trying to, like boast or anything, but the power that I'm talking about is that power that you feel from God when you know you can withstand.
Yes.
And you can't do it without him. But I know that I have that backbone. I have that stance. I have that integrity. I have that determination. I have that will, that zeal, that no matter what comes may. Oh, I've been knocked down. Oh, don't get me wrong. I've been knocked down. I've been trampled on. I've been made, even after all of this, been made to feel like, other persons come into your life and they degrade you. And I've been to the place where I'm like, God, where do I come up from this? And he makes the way. He shows the way. And so just in this story, just to say, with abuse, no matter the type of abuse that it is, once you're in Christ, you can overcome.
Yes.
Once you're in Christ, you can become that new. He says, "All things are passed away and all things become new." You can become that new creature. Am I still sometimes looking at myself and saying, my self-esteem might drop or my confidence? Yes, it does. It's not always 100% up there all the time. But the Lord makes a way for me to come back up.
Yes.
He shows me that you are not defeated. And defeat is one word. When somebody told me in my life that I would become nothing, that I would be worthless, those words empowered me to become much more than I thought I could become. Those words empowered me to pursue my nursing career. I never knew that I would be married. I never knew that I would have children. I didn't even think I would ever own a house. I never thought I would own a vehicle. I always thought that I would be renting a small apartment. I'd be on my own because I wasn't worth it for anyone. But God showed me and has shown me different, that when you let go, when you're able to drop off the things that hurt you, and most of all, when you're able to forgive, that he makes the way.
Yes.
My abusers, I never got to talk to them afterwards. I never got to ask them, why did you do this to me? I never got to say, and this is when I was a young child, I never got to say anything to them. But in order for me to let go, I had to learn how to forgive. I said the gentleman that I was going out with, if I'd ever seen him again, this is before I was really into church, if I had seen him again, that I would do everything I could do to hurt him. And I did see him. The Lord allowed me to see him. And all I could do is just shake my head and just say, God, have your own way, and just leave it alone. Mm-hmm. He never apologized for what he's done to me. He never acknowledged that he took advantage. He never said sorry. I never heard those words. And when I work with young people, when I talk to, and not just in church, but other persons too, I try to to make sure that if the person's available, that those words are heard, because it brings closure. It brings a full stop to the pain. It brings a full stop to the shame. It even brings a full stop to the guilt that you feel when you're going through things like this. Because, man, I'm telling you, there's some guilty feelings that I've had. Because the thoughts that go through your head, if you don't feel guilty for them, something's wrong.
Yeah.
Something's wrong. And I can smile at the storm right now because Jesus is in the vessel. Thank you, Jesus. He made the way. And so, like I said, I've heard other stories on the podcast and otherwise. And I don't know if what I've said has helped anybody or have empowered anybody to know that even if you don't get that sorry, you don't get that, acknowledgement, that forgiveness really does make a big difference. Forgiveness is not for the person, it's for you. Forgiveness is to allow you to let go and to let God. Forgiveness brings you to another level of understanding and maturity. And I could go on and on and on.
Mm-hmm.
But it has taught me that I will have my low moments. I will still have low moments. I will still have moments where I question things. And then I'm reminded who God is in my life. I'm reminded what he has done for me. I'm reminded that he found me worthy enough to die for. That he loved me so much that even though I went through these pains and these hurt, that I can talk about it to somebody else to save their soul, to save their life, to help save their soul, because they don't have to kill themselves to make it right. They don't have to degrade themselves to make it right. You don't have to sell yourself to make it right. But just give over to God. Just let go and let God, and you will see that there's so much of a difference. There's so much more beauty in you. I've never thought I was a beautiful person at all. I always looked at myself as just average, just an average looking girl. And the Lord showed me you're beautiful, not just on the outside, but on the inside.
Yes.
Because it is he who shaped me.
Mm-hmm.
It is he who brought me from where I'm at. And again, his grace and his mercy has been extended in my life. And therefore, I'm grateful. And yeah,
and that's
it in a nutshell.
You started off by saying that you are a victor. And I felt like that was so powerful that you started there, because the point of this whole podcast is not to just expose what people have been through, but it's still empower and to give hope and to let others know that, even though I went through something that was supposed to kill me, because of God's love, I am still standing. I am still here. And I am so happy that you came on and you shared that, because a lot of times when we are being emotionally abused, especially when it's not something physical, it's harder to walk away from, because sometimes we don't even know what the signs are and we don't even realize what is happening to us. But I felt like God literally saved you. He literally saved you and brought you out of that. And I just wanted to highlight, based on what some of the things that you said, some of the symptoms of that we can look out for if we are going through emotional abuse. Because as I said before, so many times we're in the situation and we don't even know. One of the things that you mentioned was him being very judgmental towards you, him being very putting you down. You mentioned him being very possessive and controlling, being very manipulative, and
Yep.
dismissing you and your feelings, putting you down and just making you feel like you're less than, and there's nobody outside of him that will ever love you. And I just want to appeal to our listeners out there that if you were ever made to feel like that in a relationship, that is not okay.
Nope,
It's
not at
not.
all.
If you are ever meant to feel small or just demeaned, that's not okay. And you need to find a way to break free from that. You need to find a way to break free from that. And so before we close out, Sister Baxter, is there any advice? I know you dropped a lot of advice and you gave a lot of little midgets here and there, but is there anything that you would want to say to somebody who is being emotionally abused? Because that was what you focused on today. And even before you come in, a lot of times too, when we allow people to treat us this way, it's coming from somewhere. It's not just out of the air that we allow people to take advantage of us. It's always coming from something and somewhere. And I feel like whenever this happens, we need to do some introspection to find out,
Yep.
why am I allowing him to do all this to me? Why am I sitting down and taking all of this? So what is it that you would say to somebody out there listening who is experiencing, even if it's just one of these symptoms? What would you say to them?
Wow. Listen to your instincts.
Yes.
God gives us, we call them instincts. I've learned now that it's the Holy Spirit that speaks to us. It's God that's speaking to us. But listen to your instincts. If your consciousness, your mind is telling you that something is wrong, more than likely there is something wrong.
Yeah.
If I had listened to my instincts a long time ago, I probably would not have endured 5 years of abuse.
Wow.
I knew him for 7. I knew him from work, but I endured 5 years of abuse. And also, let me tell you too, they will make promises to hold you and to keep you in place, but those promises are never fulfilled. This was the first person that ever proposed to me. I never received a ring, not even a promise ring, not even a crackerjack ring.
Oh God.
But I was proposed to twice. And that was used to hold me because I think he realized I was getting on to him. And so to kind of divert me from where I was going. I mean, there's so much more to this story. I mean, I just gave you a nutshell, but there is so much more that happened in this relationship. But one of the main things I'm going to say is listen to your gut.
Yes.
God gave us instincts for a reason. You have the animals out there, they live by instincts. You know, they hunt, they sleep, they find their mates and all of this. It's all instinctual. We do have that sixth sense as well.
Yeah.
And some of us turn it off. Mine was turned off for a long time because I wanted to fit in. I wanted to be like my friends who had a boyfriend, that when they went out, they were going out with somebody. I wanted to know that when I came home, there was somebody there, and etc., etc. But if anything is to listen to what your heart is telling you, look at the red flags. When you're seeing the red flags, do not change the color to green.
Yeah.
Do not change the color to purple or blue. When you see the red flags, see that they are red for a reason.
Yeah.
Sometimes it looks so when something looks too good to be true, it usually is.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Sister Baxter. And just to cap off what you're saying, if you have doubts, acknowledge your doubts. Don't ever just shun them and put them aside. If you have doubts about somebody, you need to acknowledge those doubts. So before we close out, I wanted to read this little poem for you. It's called Survivor Psalm. I don't know if you've ever heard it, but it says, I have been victimized. I was in a fight that was not a fair fight. I did not ask for the fight. I lost. There is no shame in losing such fights. I have reached the stage of survivor, and I'm no longer a slave to victim status. I look back with sadness rather than hate. I look forward with hope rather than despair. I forgive. And I need to remember constantly, I was a victim, but no, I am a survivor. And I felt like that was very fitting for you. And I'm grateful for where you've come on your journey. And thank you so much for joining us on No Longer Silent. I know that your story had so much more to it, but I am glad for the little snippet that we get. And I know you have empowered me. I know that your story have touched me. I've heard bits and pieces of it before, and it has helped me and helped me to know that I am not alone in my walk. And sometimes when it gets really hard, I know that you are there and you're one of the persons that I can lean on. And I know that I'm not the only one that you have helped and that you will help. So I know that when this is heard, that is going to touch somebody. And that is the reason why we do what we do. Thank you so much for joining us again, Sister Baxter. Thank you all.
Thank you for having me.
It was my pleasure. Thank you all for listening. Thank you always for supporting us in this journey of empowering our women and to just help each one reach one, as they usually say. Until next time, I am your host, Navita Milton Riley.
It's no longer